Welcome back. Welcome back, everybody. Part 2, the Esoteric Review. We are going to cover the arrival, and then, of course, we got to get to the Borgs in Star Trek First Contact. We, of course, have Darcy Weir hanging out, filmmaker, dope filmmaker, if I may add.
Hey, I'm a dope guy.
Dope filmmaker. And, of course, disclosure expert, Stephen Bassett, and overall great guy, good-looking guy. Look at him.
Who has the better beard, me or Darcy?
Darcy has like a Lego beard. His looks like drawn on, you know what I mean? Yeah. So Darcy wins every time.
That's not a very
You and I
nice...
combined have a garbage beard compared to that man's beard right there. Look at that.
I have a drawn on beard? I don't know if that's a compliment.
Like, no, it is a compliment because it's perfect. It's like so manicured. I mean, you really took your time with it. Is what
you're reminding me of like those eyebrows I sometimes see on the opposite sex, you know, those drawn on ones.
The cholos. Cholas.
Yeah,
Cholas?
The drawn eyebrows, you know?
Yeah.
That's a big thing. I don't know why these poor ladies draw them.
The males respond to it, brother. There's a, it's supply and demand. Yeah, that's all it is.
Do some guys just go up and like
they have to. That's why they had to invent the water. That's why they had to invent waterproof makeup. It had nothing to do with the rest of the world. It was strictly that culture's inability not to just walk up to a woman and lick her eyebrow off.
Right off her damn head.
Little fun fact.
So, gentlemen, I think I need to call your attention to the fact that this show is about disclosure and whatever.
Well, we're
live?
We're disclosing the facts about drawn-on eyebrows. So
yeah,
that's where it starts, and it ends with aliens.
I bet we were live.
So welcome to part 2. Part 1, we covered a bunch of cool stuff. Stevie B, you know what you're talking about. D-Weir, killing it, dude, killing it. And then I'm Brandon from Expanding Reality Podcast. Check that show out. We also, all three, had a show together earlier on in the catalog, so make sure to check that one out. That was a lot of fun. Thank y'all for joining me on that. So we're back here. We're talking about disclosure. We're talking about a couple of movies that may be what Contact is looking like. You know, this is all speculation, of course, but you can make some educated guesses. And of course, you got knowledgeable guys like these here that know what they're talking about. And these are educated guesser professionals. It's
okay,
not...
if there was, here's a better one for you. If there was full disclosure about aliens, UFOs, the whole enchilada, did I pronounce that right?
No, but I liked it. I liked it.
So,
I like that enchilada. You sound like a French guy.
It's the French version.
Yeah, I was about to say. Yeah,
enchilada is the French.
Croissant. So, if we get that version of disclosure, what do you think is a likely contact that would happen in the post-disclosure world? Do you think there will be something like this little clip? Wait, watch it.
Shit. Oh, yeah. Cue it. Roll it.
Ah, yes.
Great segment.
I love this movie. It was wonderful.
Here we get the big old squid hand here. These are squid aliens.
Skadoosh. Yeah. Which is like an optimal thing, and there's a lot that I've got to say about this movie, actually.
So say it.
Okay, so check it out.
We'll wait for Bassett to say.
Okay.
What he has to say about.
Bassett, what do you want to say about it?
Go for it.
This is a brilliant movie in so many ways. It's well received. It got a good rating. I don't know how much money it made, but it's a movie I think for the ages. And I loved it. It's really less about extraterrestrials than it is about communication and how complex that can be, and what they were trying to do is somewhat the case with what we do with animals on our planet here. I mean, we're increasingly learning that many animals have much more communicative ability than we think, and so forth. It's just well done. However, the universe doesn't seem to work that way. It's interesting. There is a reason why sentient life. Well, leave it this way. They push the limit here. For all the species that we're running into have some very significant commonalities. One head, 2 arms, 2 legs, and something that can manipulate. You need that is the basic template for sentient life that can develop technology. Porpoises are sentient and very smart. They will never go into space and build rockets and go into space. So this obviously animal is got some ability to manipulate with these giant tentacles. So it's not out of the question that it could build advanced tech and fly interstellar craft, but not likely. The other point is that, and one of the most significant things about contact, which is just not really talked about enough, it appears that every species that is engaging us is telepathic. Now think about that for a second. That just can't be luck. So it appears that sentience may always lead to telepathy. That there's something about sentience and consciousness that once you learn enough and whatever you got to do, you can become telepathic. Well, obviously that simplifies communication with other species. So apparently these entities were not telepathic, so they violated that common trait, which created a really tough situation. But think about it. Imagine if none of the species engaging the planet right now were telepathic. They would have to learn a language and be able to communicate it. My guess is they would do it by machines. They would have translators, right? And one would question, why didn't this advanced being in that movie have a simple translator? Well, it wouldn't have been an interesting movie then, would it? But it brings up all these questions, and a movie that does that is a wonderful movie, and I just loved it.
Great film. Darce, what'd you think?
Well, yeah, I agree that it was definitely about communication. It does echo some of the things we talked about in episode 1 in terms of a intervention to, prevent mankind from destroying themselves. There's a couple different interpretations that I've actually sort of gotten from this film in terms of why this contact happens, why the aliens show up. Definitely the one is that, because they show up, mankind unites. Mankind realizes we are one. We're not all these different sovereign nations. We're one nation. We're, obviously an eclectic selection of individuals, but we are humans. And at the very end, that's exemplified where the Chinese, I think it's the president or like the defense minister or something, gets the call from president. He gets the call from Amy. She says the message. The aliens gave her the message to say that was like somehow through some time. It was through time.
Yeah.
And it was the last thing that his wife said on her deathbed. Therefore, he took it seriously. We got to call off shooting at one of these alien ships. And because of that event, mankind is able to thrive and stop being so douchey, I think, is the interpretation.
Okay, douchey. First we're whacking dodos, and now we're getting douchey. This is interesting.
Check out episode 1.
To whack a dodo is a super douchebag thing to do. I mean,
okay.
That's why they went extinct. Yeah.
Well done.
Anyways,
at the end of this movie, you have roughly, which is the weakest part of the film, as far as I'm concerned, to a complex set of circumstances, the nations of the world come together, and that's a good thing. Why? Because of the nuclear threat, right? Obviously. And so it comes down to we're coming together, we're minimizing the risk of a nuclear war. Same theme, but approached in a much more intriguing way. Fine. So I like that movie, so it's more interesting. But I just said, I was with one of my colleagues today, and I said something to him, which I'll repeat here, and that is that the development of nuclear weapons and the development of a nuclear arms race was the most profound event in human history. The only thing that will surpass that will be disclosure. If you look at everything that's happened to the human race for the last 10,000 years, nothing compares with what we did between 1947 and 1980, build a vast stockpile of massive nuclear weapons capable of destroying civilization, simply because we couldn't come to an agreement that that's a bad thing to do. And so for the last 75 years, we've always lived just about 18 minutes away from nuclear war, maybe even less, 12 minutes. And we've completely adapted to it. Any day we could have that war. We could have it tonight. We could have it tomorrow morning. And we've completely adapted to that, which is not a good thing, all right? In other words, by adapting to it, we have really undermined our willingness to resolve the problem. When was the last nuclear arms or limitation talks that you recall having taken place? When was the last political candidate with a serious chance to be president make it a centerpiece of their campaign? No. We are simply, basically, what's the word? We're taking a pass on. We're casting our fate to the winds. Whatever the hell, it's insane. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be. We get upset over this and that thing. All the things that we get upset on. Pick any issue at all. Every one of those things that we go nuts about: global warming, homeless people, issues between countries, all of them are moot if we have a nuclear war. Doesn't matter. And yet that issue is like, well, what can you do? So we are dancing on the edge of the volcano. We've adapted to it. I choose not to dance. I am basically an anti-war, anti-nuclear weapons activist in a sense, and we have to deal with this, or it doesn't matter about all of our politics and issues and all that crap that we fill our lives with. That's the one issue we must solve. It's the most important issue in the world, and we haven't been able to solve it. So am I shocked that extraterrestrials who may understand this have moved in a very aggressive way, including interfering with our nuclear weapon sites, turning on missiles, turning off missiles, and so forth? Do I think that's an accident? No. I think there's a direct connection there. And so the nuclear issue is the most important issue in the world today, except possibly for ending the truth embargo and opening the door for open contact. The two are inextricably connected in ways that we're only still starting to understand. And I am doing my best to learn as much and think about as much about that as possible for some various reasons. But this is the real core story here to all of this. There's Roswell, and there's Bentwaters, and there's this contact event and that sighting, and all that. Okay, great. Thousands of books have been written. But at the core of it is the relationship between extraterrestrials, our invention and use of nuclear weapons, our persistence in maintaining those weapons, and the impact it would have on us if we use them, and the impact on extraterrestrials if we build interstellar craft and take them into space. These are huge fundamental issues that transcend all the other stuff that is being engaged on the ET issue. They are fundamental, right? They don't care about the dodo. They care about us ruining the entire biosphere. They don't care so much about they care less about our using nukes on ourselves than bringing them into space and threatening all nearby civilizations. These are big aspects of this phenomena, which, don't be surprised, start getting addressed very soon in the media and in the intellectual sphere.
Something that I really liked about the arrival was the entities themselves, because what you said to the bipedal thing being the most likely, it's not. It's like the worst design possible. There are a ton of perils of being bipedal. We have osteoporosis. We have tons of heart problems. There's a big issue with being designed the way that we are, just simply because we evolved that way. There's a guy I've had on the show. He's an author. He wrote a book called Identified Flying Objects. He's an anthropologist, a professor up in Butte, Montana, and Dr. Michael P. Masters. And whenever we talk about being bipedal, only one species on the planet has ever done that, and the millions and millions and millions that have been around, and that's been us. So it's not an optimal design. And what I did like about the movie is that they took that into account, and they took into account a lot of things, man, that a lot of people overlook as far as atmospherics. Like they needed to have a completely different atmosphere than we did to survive. That's a big thing that gets overlooked often. And the fact that they walked in with hazmat suits and knew that any kind of contact might result in some sort of contamination, we just don't know at that point. But then also the fact that they were this different organism that was still organic in nature, which was interesting. It operated on a different chemistry, of course, because of its environmental needs. But, you know, the fact that it was this, it still had things, you know, undulating arms that it could articulate things with. So it's not necessarily the two, like I said, the bipedal thing is it's a problem, and there's a lot of perils in being bipedal. And the fact that they pointed it out and chose that the entity be completely different, the nod to the squid element of it, because there's a conspiracy theory, of course, that the squids or octopuses are actually aliens from another planet that have been here, because they're so damn different. They have like 3 hearts. They bleed blue blood. I mean, it's insane whenever you take a look at those things. So that's one of the conspiracy theory elements to it. So I like that it was kind of in the film that way as well. And that's a completely plausible thing. Now, something I wanted to point out about the ship. What did you guys think about the ship itself?
I think the ship, what stood out to me and about the ship as well as the actual occupants, the aliens, was that it was more so organic. It was it was like a big rock.
Yeah.
You know, it was like a big like black obelisk sort of soapstone or something like that, and the squids shot out ink that they could move around with telekinesis. And there's actually a pretty cool scene, you know, just a little bit into the film, probably at the midpoint, where they're actually getting pretty far in terms of breaking this communication barrier. And some old D-bag from the military there decides to plant a bomb inside the chamber.
Yeah.
And take out everybody, because I mean, that is a possible situation we could run into in terms of some kind of contact. There's going to be a lot of Hezbollahs and, you know, jihads or whatever. See, they use telekinesis. It forces them out of the room, and the bomb stays in the room. That little squid move there. I don't know if you saw that moment there. Just back.
Look, these scenes are great, aren't they? I mean, it's just beautiful done scenes.
It's a great movie.
Right there, and then pushes them out. Right, saves their stinking lives. So I mean, that would be an interesting time to live in, where we actually have, you know, that would unite humanity too. And would you actually think that could be a tactic of the American military to have this form of disclosure where we unite against a common enemy, as Ronald Reagan famously spoke in that speech to the United Nations?
87, 89?
That's so. Very that's very anthropomorphic. I mean, that's how humans operate. I don't think that's how they operate. If we come together finally in order to take on the extraterrestrials, then coming together will be the last thing we do. I guess we'll have a moment of togetherness, and then we will be gone. We cannot defeat them.
So what'd you think about the ship?
It was a well done. It sort of mimicked the extraterrestrials, who are fairly not exactly attractive, kind of bland, sort of a gray color. And so the ship doesn't have any fancy stuff. It's this kind of blah gray. So it kind of matched up well. I mean, I don't know what to say more about that, except that I think it was a good way to go. And it was believable. You didn't see any dials. You didn't see any of the usual fancy stuff. But the fun thing about the ship was that it was positioned. It was not touching the ground. It was antigravitically just positioned there, solid, right? It was kind of cool. So they had to use a thing to get into it. I kind of like that. That was kind of cool. And then the gravity changed. Which was good. All of these were well done. This is great sci-fi.
Yeah.
It was a little more complicated than typical sci-fi, and so you're not going to make the big bucks. I just hope that thanks to streaming, we're going to see more movies like this that don't need to make $950 million, but we'll have some wonderful graphics in it and be more complicated. Streaming is great because it makes it possible to make much more complicated, more intellectually challenging movies and be able to do it and not lose your ass. So I'm a huge fan of streaming. I think it's a major change in civilization, to be honest with you.
So one thing about the ship that I noticed was the layout of it. Okay, so it's very, very interesting. To what you said, Darcy, absolutely looks like a rock. It's definitely organic. It looks organic. Another splinter off of that idea would be the hollow moon idea, where there, are claims that there are ancient writings of Chinese people living back then. Whenever you couldn't write anything of fiction, you had to write everything. It was illegal to do anything other than actual fact. And they talk about a time where the moon came here. Now, one of the ideas, and I think Alex Collier points this out really, really well, he does some great work on it, is the hollow moon idea, that there's a hollowed out planetoid, that they took a rock or a planetoid type of an object in space, allegedly, hollowed it out, put some machinery in there that manipulates gravity, life support systems, all of that good stuff. And then they shot it across the solar system, universe, whatever, found Earth, and then now they're here. And that could be one explanation for some interesting things. To the movie's point of it, though, that would mean that idea is universal. Yeah, that's, of course, how you travel through radiation and through micrometeors. You hollow out something that can take the impact of that and not ruin your ship. And so whenever then like you said, Steve, the hanging upside or just off the ground, awesome. I love that. No landing gear. It's mysterious. It's very cool. I agree with you. Yeah. That was badass. Yeah. And when the door opens, it's predictable every 18 hours, which there's definitely some 369 stuff going on there, which speaks back to Tesla, that multiple number. Then you look at the gravity switch, of course. Now, I've got to say to the U.S. military, they've got a hell of a scissor lift. That thing went up 50, 60 feet. How tall was that thing? Did you see that?
That was a custom, I think.
I mean, it was a tiny little thing on the ground, and then it just kept going, man. Anyway, so that aside, the gravity transition over, this is one of the points I wanted to make about the ship. So it's a long hallway that goes to a observation window with nothing else in it, with a gallery type opening. In my mind, this speaks to that the ships come to everywhere and contact people. That's what it's designed for. It's like a model home. It's like an inviting way of communicating.
That's a contact ship. It's not a warship. It's not a research ship. It's literally, we got to get these suckers up into the chamber so we can have a little chill time.
Yeah, and then the fact that they can manipulate gravity might be their power or just something they can do, and it's easy for them, and that's why it seems easy for them. Maybe not necessarily telekinesis. Maybe it's just a shift in gravity, because if you think about it, whenever he pushed up against the window, he could have just turned the gravity on in the room, and then they would have been pulled right behind. He didn't necessarily need to push them back, because if you look at it also, it looks like the gravity came on because all the tables and stuff tipped. They didn't fly back. They just kind of tipped as if they were falling, as if gravity was kicked back on, which could be another way in which they're able to manipulate that craft and do whatever they want with it, as that sort of element. But it did kind of lend to the idea that it was more of a welcoming ship, like I said, so they kind of expected it.
By the way, I'm a big fan of the artificial moon.
I know.
I love this theory.
I know. It's so much fun.
Reasons. One is that we can get back to the moon, and if there's an artificial structure in there, we could probably get in it. So that would make it something that's accessible to us. Could be incredibly fascinating.
You're gonna go hijack the moon? Stephen Bassett hijacks the moon. I want that movie made. And you just driving off with it. We're like, our tides.
The technology in there could be amazing. But you know why an extraterrestrial species would put a moon around a favorably placed planet?
Yeah, observation. You take resources, you see the planet, see if you can make humanity. Maybe we're just a giant experiment or a TV reality show or a zoo.
Well, yeah, but what's the reason why the moon helps that happen?
Well, allegedly, if you believe it, the moon affects our tides. But then, like I said, there's been a lot of ancient cultures. There's been cave drawings in Australia. The Chinese wrote about it, where they remember the moon arriving, that it wasn't always here.
No, that's the point I'm saying. Oh, you're saying it arrived not that long ago.
well, relative to history, I'm saying we haven't always had it, like the giant impact theory would suggest, is an idea, and there's archaeological evidence to back this up from multiple sources that allegedly did not communicate with one another. So when you take that into consideration, then now you're talking about that, well, there was obviously life here without a moon there. That's the implications of that. Therefore, life doesn't need the moon to exist. So this is the idea.
Well,
this is why you can take her for a ride, man. Take her around the block.
It's the speed up of the evolution. Look, if the moon arrived recently, then no, this theory is completely out the window. But the fact is that the presence of the moon was critical to advancing life on the planet, particularly in the early days because of the tidal effects.
Is the idea
that's true? So I don't know about the Chinese, what they came up with. That might be completely incidental to this. It might be something that they're misconstrued.
It's not just the Chinese. There are several cultures that talk about it.
The idea that an artificial moon would have been placed here by an advanced species in order to ensure a relatively fast-paced evolution actually makes very powerful sense. So Who Made the Moon, that book, pretty cool book.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they made a doc about it.
Dude, Darcy, you got to do one.
We'll do it.
Do a doc about Hollow Moon.
Hollow Moon?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I just released Secret Space UFOs Part 1, and I cover in that doc the, starting of the space program and how throughout the 60s and 70s and, even into recent days, there's many anomalies that have been found on the moon that just don't seem to prove to be natural. They seem to be some kind of ancient buildings or megalith structures. It's incredible. So
there were also, I want to say the Vedics talk about that with the Vimanas, that they would go to the moon and just hang out and come back. Like it was no big deal.
Hey, some people theorize that the moon might have had an atmosphere at one point, and then it went through some kind of destructive process, and now it's this just piece of garbage floating up.
Let me give you a better one. Or
give it to me.
There is all kinds of cool shit up there, and there's a hologram over it, so that we can't see the water, the lights, the greenery, the civilization, the comings and goings of the ship. It's all camouflaged.
That sounds like flat Earth theory.
Isn't that fun?
Isn't that awesome? Flat Earth theory. Not down with it. But,
no, because it's flat Earth. That doesn't need to be.
It's interesting.
It's possible.
I've seen actually videos actually on Tyler Glockner's Secure Team channel. He has a video, he did a bit of research some years ago, I think, and it shows a zoomed up shot of the moon, the lunar surface, from just some hobby astronomer. And every few minutes, there seems to be this kind of like wave, this almost like frame buffering happening to the moon. And when I saw that, I was like,
yeah.
No, there's no flat Earth. There's no flat Earth.
It has nothing to do with flat Earth. It has nothing to do with flat Earth.
I know. I'm just fucking with you.
But it could. I mean, it could. Anyway, but what I'm saying is there's tons of evidence on this. This dude has a sick channel. I know exactly who you're talking about because it's fascinating. Yep. Stevie B, have you ever seen this? Where you can see stars through the moon, or that there's a big wave that goes across it. It looks like it's rendering a little bit.
I vaguely remember.
And it's not an atmospheric thing. They can rule all that good science stuff out.
Yeah, I don't know too much about that, but...
we're going into uncharted territory here, boys. So why don't we get back
to... the arrival.
The arrival.
I think we covered the arrival.
I think we covered. Let's go into
Star Trek, dude.
Star Trek,
man. Yes.
Yeah. So
this is awesome. This is
before we do that, actually, we want to do Independence Day.
Oh yeah, we're still doing that. I was hoping you'd forget.
Oh yeah.
So
hoping you'd forget.
The reason why this is important is because this dumb movie actually holds. Look, see those planes that we just saw there? I'll go back.
Yeah.
Those planes are basically what Hal Puthoff was trying to get built under To the Stars Academy, right? Am I right?
I don't know.
They're if you look at them, they have alien technology incorporated into them. They're like a F-117
like an F-35,
like anti-grav technology.
Yeah.
This guy's gun is all sicked out with alien glowing lights.
It's like Tron. That's dope. And
so
that craft design is in Avengers as well, with high technology too. Same exact craft design with the
Sure. So what I'm saying is the idea here in this film, we've lost Bassett. He's going to get a chocolate.
I'm going to get my mouse. Relax.
He's getting his mouse.
You threw your mouse?
So he's got a mouse, man. So he's got
a pet
mouse.
So, it's a pet mouse.
So basically we've got this scenario where the planet was invaded once, but we claimed their technology, we reversed engineered it, and we've adopted it so that when this dumb invasion happens a second time, we've got these anti-gravity F-117s, and, you know, we're able to defend the planet. It almost looks like there's a Decepticon on the back wing there. I don't know if you noticed that. But so this film's interesting because it seems to, there's the moon. There's a little space battle on the moon. Like, it's a dumb movie, but it has the whole reverse engineering. And I wanted to showcase this because, Stephen, we've talked about this in the past on other podcasts, and you say that you include this theory in your lectures, that we're at this point where our technology has become so advanced. We've got AI flying at us. You know, it's on our phone, which Elon Musk will argue AI is, you know, all around us now, and you've got supercomputers in your pockets. So
he also called it a demon, though.
He called it a demon, really?
Yeah, I think he said it's a demon, and then he's talking about doing Neuralink. This is why the dude...
He probably smoked salvia right before he said that, but anyway.
Maybe.
Look.
But the man said it. He did.
All I'm saying is, if we do have some kind of contact event, is it not likely that mankind will no longer be mankind? And there's two scenarios, right? Stephen Hawking predicted that mass contact would go the way that Christopher Columbus did to the Native Americans when the Europeans arrived on our shores here. So what is going to happen to life and civilization? Are we going to adopt technology? Are we going to lose our minds, rip out our hair, and scream and run in circles? Are we going to lose religion? Are we going to, you know, have sex in the streets, Rick and Morty style? I mean,
you've only got to something worth doing. Look, I've talked about this before. Post-disclosure, we'll spend a lot of time learning what we can about what we know about the ET issue, and that will include government information as well. And once we've learned a great deal and we've gotten over the initial excitement and fun, then open contact can take place. And that's when things get interesting. That's when I think we're going to find out the agendas, by and large, most of the agenda. And I think one of the agendas is this, that we have certain fundamental curves that are attached to our existence on this planet. One of them is a population curve. We keep breeding. We know better, but we just, you know, what can you do, right? And as a result, our population is starting to flatten a little bit, but it's headed towards unacceptable number. Huge problem. Huge problem. I mean, you say, well, look, we get a lot of people die from starvation. Hey, that's the way it is, right? And there'll be plenty of us left over, and we'll survive, keep going. We'll make more people. They'll die of starvation. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that people are smart and have resources, or even the poorest people, and they're not just going to die of starvation or whatever, or thirst, and go down quietly. You're going to have hundreds of millions of people suffering, and they're going to respond to that by coming together and charging up the streets and into the buildings and blowing things up and tearing things down and killing the rich and everything else. It's going to be chaos. So that's a bad thing. So we have this population problem, but we have other problems. We have other curves. The technological curves in a number of areas are turning upward. One of them is the AI. All right. The AI situation is moving faster than we are dealing with in a responsible way. And where we're going with that is down the line, hundreds of millions of people are going to be out of a job. And are we preparing for that? Not really. We talk about it a little bit. We're not doing anything, right? There are curves in the genetic technology area where we're starting to learn a lot more than we can handle. And that could get us into deep trouble. And we could go down the line. So in other words, our technology is now advancing than we are able to deal with it, because the one curve that isn't really steep, meaning it's flat, is our mental capacity. It hasn't evolved at all. It may have even devolved a little bit. It takes millions of years to achieve increased mental capacity. And obviously, we don't have millions of years. These trends have happened in the last 150 years. Our moral capacity is not getting any better. And so the tech is taking off, the population is growing, and we're basically the same humans that were walking around here 200 years ago, 2,000 years ago. This isn't going to work. What the hell can you do? What can we do? Well, we need intervention. We need a species to be able to intervene that's been there, done that, understands it, and can assist us in reconciling this situation, okay? Like birth control technology. The ETs will give us birth control technology that is incredibly cheap, totally safe, fun to use, and we can start bringing the population down. For some reason, we don't invest a lot into birth control technology. Even population growth is one of the biggest problems we face in the world. I don't want to get into that, but that's the way it is. And we could go down the line. But let me put it more in an immediate moment. If I were president of the United States, one thing I would do is I would immediately create a new cabinet position, and it would be Secretary of Science and Technology Ethics. And this cabinet person's job would be to ensure that I, as president, would be getting constant input about the situation regarding technologies, where they're going, what's happening, what are the ethical concerns, so they can be addressed ahead of catastrophes. And of course, I'd also have a Secretary of Peace. We have a Secretary of War. Why we don't have Secretary of Peace is rather interesting. It's been introduced, but it's always been put down.
Because you don't make money on war, on peace. You make money on war. That's
why. We got secretaries of things you don't make money on. But the point is that the Secretary of Peace's job would be to ensure the president has everything the president needs to know about the options for peace, what's putting it at risk, what's not. So, but why am I mentioning this? I'm simply saying that the human race and its institutions needs to recognize the reality of the modern world, which is we are losing the capacity to deal with the things around us because they are changing faster than we can change. Okay, and we haven't done that. Now, the extraterrestrials would know this. They have seen this before. I believe that this happens on every planet that has sentient beings develop and technology develop, because evolution works on a very slow basis, whereas population and technology works on a much faster basis. So there is always going to be this divergence. Now, if you go back in the 1400s, 1600s, or 3000 BC, there wasn't much. But then once you hit 1900, boom, off it goes. And so the 20th century was the turning point. The cracking of the atom, the beginning of the 20th century, relative, all these things were the turning point where the dynamics and the equations we had to solve in order to succeed as society changed dramatically. 50 years later, we build the bombs. After we drop them, a year later, the ETs expand their activity, continue to keep that going. Our technological issues continue to grow. Problems continue to develop. Our population continues to grow until at some point, we finally disclose the ET presence. Now, one last point. It didn't have to take 75 years. We could have had disclosure in 1952, 61, 72. There wasn't like this, the plan wasn't, oh, well, look, the way it is it takes 85 years to go through this process, and that's the way it is. No, not at all. We got delayed. I think in other civilizations that have gone through this, it might have been a shorter time frame. Drop the bomb, disclosure, ET intervention, 8-9 years later. In our case, the path we took was drop the bomb, build massive stockpiles of weapons, have an arms race. And that arms race we pursued was such vigor. We spent trillions of dollars on it. A lot of people starved to death because, hey, the money had to buy the nukes. And so we developed this 44-year Cold War where we all lived on the edge of the volcano. We could go at any time. The ETs, I think, realized that this had to run its course. It dragged it out and delayed it. And so we're now 75 years into this transition process, which really begins in 1945 and should end this year, right? 75 years is long enough. And then we'll see what happens next.
My question to you guys, and this is like another little cherry on top. It's a small little side theme to this incredibly bad movie. It's actually not a very good movie. But
you know what it is? It's Signs 2.
The side. That's definitely not Signs, man.
It's
That's
Signs 2. I will prove it. No,
No,
it's Signs 2.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to show you a little clip. This is actually a scene that happens in the movie where the scientists realize that a good AI has come, this little sphere AI, and it's an alien artificial intelligence. It's come to supposedly help mankind fight off the, let's call them squidouches that have come to destroy the planet. And, do you think it's possible that there's a lot of accounts that are out there about contact and abductees, experiencers say that certain occupants of the craft are very artificial intelligent like. They sort of have a robotic manner to them.
Like Pascagoula.
Yeah, that sounds like two robots helped one alien,
Yep.
And so do you think that there is a bad AI or a good AI element that's interfacing with our planet? Like how do we know that these are aliens that are even flying around these UFOs? They, physically, with our state of physics, with our concept of physics, our pilots would be turned to mush if they zapped around the sky like the Tic Tac was observed doing, right? Even if they're wearing a seatbelt, they would probably rip right through them, and their head would be on one side of the craft if it did one of these maneuvers in the sky so quickly at thousands of miles per hour. So is that artificial intelligence? Is that actually just a drone that's interfacing with our planet? And would contact ever look like that in a post-disclosure world where we're actually, we have the president shaking hands with like some AI from off-world?
Well, being very familiar with the development of the sex robot industry, I can say that, hey, what can I say? We will have intelligent robots in a relatively recent time span. By the way, that's another one of these curves.
Have you fucked a few robots, Stephen?
Gee, Darcy, that's an interesting question. Okay. No, I said I'm familiar with the industry. Okay. So
I love you, man.
I think what's different here is that what's supposed to happen is, in other words, what was supposed to happen on our planet is that Arnold Schwarzenegger it helps to produce a series of films called The Terminators, and we're supposed to watch this and go, holy crap, we can't let that happen. And so we have to make sure that the AI that we're developing can't get into the internet and do that. We need to be able to pull the plug anytime we want. Now, of course, that's not what we're doing. We're going, yeah, Terminator. We go there. That's what we want to do. We definitely want to do that. Let's get weapons that can pretty much make their own decision about shooting. And that's because at one level we're idiots. All right. I'm suggesting that the extraterrestrials probably are not that stupid. They saw their own Terminator movies and going, we're not going to let that happen. And their Secretary of Science and Technology Ethics said, yeah, you don't want that to happen. And so they don't create a situation where artificial intelligence can purely operate on its own. You're talking about a drone, a smart drone, yeah, But an artificial intelligence civilization where all you got is artificial intelligence and that's running the show, that would be a civilization where the living beings apparently did not watch those Terminator movies. So I'm not too worried about that. I mean, it's not that big a deal. There may be some robot ETs that are turning up in some of these abduction events. That's not that big a deal. And ultimately, at some point, you can only project so far into the future in terms of potential tech developments. At some point, it's just pointless. You want to go out 100,000 years? Please, I have no idea. It's just no way. All we know is that artificial intelligence can be a boon and also a curse to our society. Will we address that and act maturely? Well, acting maturely is not how humans roll right now. It's just not in our game plan.
Let me ask you about this film. You know, we're going into the last film of the episode, and that is Star Trek First Contact, which I bought this for my dad for one of his birthdays on VHS when I was a kid. Selfish gift, because actually I was the one that wanted to watch it all the time, and he's a Trekkie, but I think he liked Stargate a little bit more than Star Trek, which drove me nuts. Every time I walked in the house and I saw him watching SG-1, I was like, get that shit off the TV.
Dude, MacGyver and teleporting? Where can you go wrong? That's a beautiful combination.
I don't know. The movies, the Stargate movie with David Spader, amazing.
Hell yeah.
The TV show, blah. Anyways, so look, yeah,
Steve,
they didn't have the money.
We're doing a show, Stephen.
They had a bunch of Canadian actors. That's what the problem was. So we've got Star Trek First Contact, great film. This is the scene at the very end where
Spoiler alert.
where this show is full of spoilers.
I'm kidding.
Vulcan head honcho walks out, ear reveal.
Yeah.
The crowd goes, "Oh my God.
Good Lord.
He's an alien. Look at those ears."
Oof.
And you know, the guy who starts up the Federation,
thanks time.
Boom, live long and prosper.
Motherfucker.
And this guy apparently can't do it. Can you guys do it?
Yeah.
All day or a day.
Well, I'll tell you.
Do it.
If you can, you're good with the ladies. Boom.
Oh,
nailed it.
Boom. Good. Anyways, so, you're thinking of this? Wait.
Or the guys, whatever you're in.
You're thinking of this. That's all right.
What?
You said something about for the ladies, right?
I've never seen that.
I did.
Anyways, so First Contact. Let's talk about this film because, interestingly enough, it is a bit of a segue. It is about bad AI because the villains of this film are actually the Borg, which are artificial intelligence gone wrong. They are trying to take over the universe with their zombie robots, and they adapt quickly, and they can, inflict great damage and harm, and just kind of rape and pillage everything along the way. Now, in terms of AI, what would sort of be a saving grace, and they touch on it in this film, Data, the running theme in this is he has a chip now where he can feel emotions. And in this scene, he says to Captain Picard, when they go to Deck 6 to stop the Borg that have invaded their ship, the Enterprise, he says, Captain, I believe I am feeling anxiety right now. And this is the first time. And he says, Data, do me a favor. Would you turn off that emotion chip, please? And then he says, right. And then he just kind of does like, clips his head back, and
how you do it.
Turns off that emotion chip. Whip. There, it's done. So basically, that's kind of hits the nail on the head. Isn't artificial intelligence supposed to have empathy if it's going to operate within some parameters where it doesn't turn on all of mankind and just nuke us off the planet?
It's supposed to be programmed with empathy, but that's a human emotion that we haven't figured out how to program yet. So there's a myriad of chemicals, electrical signals. I mean, things like that take up being able to process an emotion like that. And we just haven't gotten there with AI. So therefore, to have them be making ethical decisions is unethical in its own right, because they can't have ethics. They're devoid of it. They only possess that which they learn or they're programmed to do. And if they're programmed to learn whatever the fuck they want, then yeah, they could turn on humanity. The logical thing, whenever you talk about AI, and you hear this all the time in the argument, is that they see us as the problems we are trying to get them to solve. So if we're like, okay, well, I need you to clean up all this mess or whatever, well, they'll take out the humanity because that's what made the mess. If the mess is the problem, how it was created is the actual problem. That's where they get efficient and start solving that problem, which is where your fear of AI comes into play. They're unemotional about it. They just look at it logically. That's the scariest thing. They can't be reasoned with, and it can't be shut off if it does hit the internet. I mean, that's just the thing.
But you know, at the end of Terminator 2, Arnold says to John O'Connor, "I now know why you cry." You know,
these impressions are spot on, Stephen. Right?
Not very good, but I was using my Chinese
that's a movie.
accent there.
That's a movie.
So, I know, but the whole idea, the whole premise there is that AI has learned what empathy is. They understand.
It doesn't understand. It would learn to mimic the behavior that would be projected as empathy, but it's not actual empathy because there's nothing there. It just learned that that's what it's supposed to do. There are studies on psychology all the time where they'll have like 4 or 5 people in a room and they're supposed to wait. And this is just a study. There's one person that doesn't know what the deal is, and they'll sit him down in the corner amongst all these people and they're filling out paperwork, and then the bell goes off. Every time a bell goes off, everybody else stands up and then sits back down. This dude's looking around after a couple of them, and he's like, the hell's going on? All of them programmed this guy to then every time a bell went off, he would stand up with him and then just sit back down. It became an automatic thing. He would be sitting there filling out the form, bell would go off, he'd stand up, sit back down, just like everybody else. He was programmed to mimic the behavior. That doesn't mean he understands why they were doing it.
Humans are programmable. I mean,
this is what I mean, though. We would program AI to be programmable.
We are programmable, though. I mean, if you go turn on the television or you read the news, you're starting your programming because you're absorbing information that's been put out, and you're basically programming yourself to some degree. And I'd say that even mass media is a form of hypnosis that programs.
Absolutely.
I mean, you go to Fox News, you get half the country. You go to CNN, you get the other half the country. And there's no real, I mean, there's a couple things in between, but they tend to fall on those two sides. And it's programming, you know, it's intellectual, biological programming.
Yes.
It's neurosuggestive programming. But all I'm saying is if we have AI, the only way it's going to go bad is if it has no empathy, if it has no programmed ability to understand emotion and repercussions to human loss and such, you know, these types of scenarios.
Completely agree. But whenever you talk about the whenever you were just saying about the empathy, it can have that, but that's just, like I said, a programmed response. It's not necessarily actually empathy. Now, then the issue that you'd run into then would be preference, because if it's empathetic, it's got to choose what to be empathetic about. Let's say that this one robot has the power to be empathetic or the programming to do so, then it chooses kittens over its owner, whatever. And so now it murders the owner because it was bad for the kitten. You know, so it's empathetic towards the kitten, not necessarily the human. And then I know you talk about Moore's laws with the, you know, do no harm and all that stuff. But if at some point, if it will achieve something similar to sentience, because we'll program it in to be that way.
Are you talking
for
about
our benefit?
Isaac Asimov's?
Asimov. My apologies.
Moore's
Asimov.
law is how technology. Yeah.
You're right. Thank
sure.
you.
Yeah, no worries.
We're all learning and growing in a safe space.
I've said a few dumb things tonight. Don't worry.
Not at all.
And what you said is not dumb. You just got the wrong law. That's all, brother.
I did. I fucked it.
No.
But that's the point. And what I meant by the empathy thing, though, is that humans will program them to be programmable because we're programmable and we're creating this thing. So it's just like father-son deal. You know, your progeny is going to be like you. And so those creations will mimic human behavior, all of its best and worst qualities. So now you've got a best and worst thing that doesn't need to eat, that, you know, can survive forever, that can tolerate severe temperatures that is far physically superior than any of us meatbags, and now you've turned it loose with empathy. I mean, it's insanity, man.
Well, I think like the whole Isaac Asimov law was that you the first rule is you shall do no harm to like humans.
Yeah, but then you saw iRobot. Those were in there.
Yeah. Which is
I mean, so
his
it's
story,
if
right?
there's a way to do it, it can, it's just possible. So
Well,
I
look,
have a bombshell that's going to tie all this together before we wrap. So let me know when you want to do that.
Go for it. Drop that bomb.
All right. So what I think all this is about is if you look at the UFO community, the disclosure movement, anything you want to say about it, that it's more of a religious institution. Hear me out on this. So if you look at Diane Pasulka's American Cosmic, she talks about hierophanies, and I didn't even know what that word was until I read that book. So a hierophany is a place like Jerusalem, Temple Mount, or something like that. It's a place where deities came from heaven and landed on a physical spot, Mount Sinai, where Moses got the Ten Commandments. These are hierophanies. So what you find then is things like Roswell. That's a hierophany. It's something that's revered, and people go there. They opened an alien, McDonald's there. I'm loving it. We really need to get sponsored by them soon. So, and so you find that all of these things occur, but they occur at a natural pace, as does religion. So it's just the new religion. Now, what's interesting and what made me think of it as far as this movie goes, because it's a great book. If you guys haven't read it, check it out. She's brilliant. America Cosmic, Diane Pasulka. So, but with the movies, if you look at the second, well, let's just look at the first. The Day the Earth Stood Still from the first episode. You've got something coming from the heavens, coming down to earth. They set up a little something around it, make it a spot of reverence. So now this place is now considered a hierophany. It is something that came from the sky, more advanced than us, whether mythically or technologically, it's not specified. Then they land, and now this is a spot of reverence and worship that a deity seeming comes out and then starts talking about saving the planet and stuff, has the power to destroy us, just like a god does.
Like Mecca.
Yeah, like Mecca, like Temple Mount. Yeah, and Mecca and Jerusalem, all of that. These are hierophanies. So now that field right there is a hierophany. So then you look at the next one, The Day the Earth Stood Still, the Keanu Reeves, and God bless Jennifer Connelly Bassett. Get off my Kool-Aid on that one, man. She's spoken for. Then you look at that movie. Well, what is it? It's got biblical themes to it. You think of the tablets of Gilgamesh, the flood of Noah. He saves all these animals. So he saved all the animals and then just wiped humanity off the face of the earth, just like Noah in the ark. He has these arks that fly around the planet. All these animals are attracted to them. They shag ass. That's the plan. So they could save them because the destruction of the planet isn't their fault. It's ours, is the narrative of this movie.
I like how in this scene he says, "We won't make it." And then he grabs them, they run, and they make it.
And they make it. Yeah. So the next one, then, The Arrival. If you looked at that, how many ships landed across the planet? 12, like the 12 disciples of Jesus. Then also there's a reference to a cult in there that has Jesus as their emblem that then burned themselves in their building because they saw the aliens coming and they saw it as a sign of their faith or of their religion. So there's a religious tie to it there as well. So all of these elements kind of lead to the idea that UFOs, the UFO community, this type of thought process is just another religion. It's just another thing that's mystified, glorious, and something that people look at with obsession.
Have you been talking too much with Robbie Graham?
Robbie and I hadn't talked since a little bit, but why?
Yeah.
Is that something that sound like something he would say?
Didn't he leave like a UFO religion or something, and he's all spiteful about ufology now?
No, but I've heard of several people, man, in the movement. I don't know what Robbie's specific instance was, and he's not here to defend himself. But I don't know anything.
I'm not attacking.
I'm just.
At
I'm
all.
saying.
I'm just.
I know you're not. I'm saying I'm not going to speculate on what happened because I don't know, and he's not here to tell me. But with the UFO community, I'm sure, Mr. Bassett, you've ran into this. You've been around long enough, and there's some bickering and some issues going on, like some people that can't play nice.
In any movement, any large movement or project, there's people that can't get along. There's nothing unusual about that.
Yeah, that's fair. And so, yeah, maybe it was something like that. And then, you just don't resonate with certain ideas or certain people. There's nothing wrong with that. You just kind of move on and everybody just goes and does their own thing.
All I'll say about your hypothesis is this. Like for Catholic and Christian religion, the one hypophany.
Hierophany.
Hierophany. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a new word.
The hierophany is Jesus is on this, he's put onto the crucifix, and the Jews did it, and I hope that our fans are not freaking out that I'm talking about this crap right now. Sorry, guys, but I don't want to stoke any fires, but that's like the big event, right? And there's also like some people pray to Virgin Mary and all that stuff. Like that's another hierophany.
Well, hierophany is specifically a physical place on Earth that a deity or something came and landed. So that area is called a hierophany.
So in most religions, there's one. In
sacred
ufology, there's thousands, man.
Absolutely.
It can't be a religion. It can't be
a religion.
No, it
can be. It's just got more steps.
I mean,
it's a religion with more steps.
There's definitely cult leaders, and there's definitely folks that follow the subject religiously, but in my opinion, it's not a religion because there's no church you go to pray.
Sure,
there's thousands of hierophanies because throughout history, we mentioned a few tonight: Westall 66, Ariel School. You've got Phoenix Lights, you name it, like everything, even airports in China being shut down because UFOs, and that happened in 2011. You can't call that a hierophany. It's an event. It's a UFO event, and it's credible, and it lends credibility to just the fact that we're, maybe some of these craft are ours. Maybe some of them are off-world, and that's we're all just trying to figure this out. We're all trying to find out what this secret is, and we want to get in on it.
Where are we going here? Give me a destination.
We're going to wrap it up.
Are you religious about UFOs?
Okay, because again, the issue of religion is complicated, and there are ET elements in some of the current religions in this world. Scientology says it's a religion. There's ET element there. The Mormon faith has a little of that. And then in the past, there's very good evidence that humans mistook ET events for something that would be context as religion. In terms of the extraterrestrial phenomena research activist efforts, there's almost no religion there. And that doesn't mean a person can't make it one, but I know a lot of the people that are involved in this, and we know a lot about the history of this issue. And there's been an attempt a little bit here and there to kind of give it that religious aspect. It's very small. The people have been polled on this issue to death. Millions and millions of people have been polled, and this idea that people are thinking of it as religion and forming religion around it, it's not turning up. It's not there. We aren't. This isn't 5,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago. We are an advanced technological global society, and which has a very, very large number of agnostic and atheists now. Very large number. It's not trivial. And those that do have religion are not prepared to swap their religion for something involving ETs. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. It's not an issue. People will make a religion about anything, fine, let them do it, that's their business. But in terms of how our fundamental reaction and response is going to be to learning about the presence of ETs, confirming it, and possibly having open contact, by and large, the society as a whole is not going to religify it. A few will, but mostly no. Now the species, now maybe they have a religion. I'm sure we'll ask them. Do you believe in God? Yes. Well, do you have religious ceremonies? I don't know. Maybe they'll say yeah. But again, that's not the same thing as worshiping ETs. There's not going to be much of that in the post-disclosure world.
I think
we're past that.
I think that is a possibility, though. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I mean, look, if we do have a mass contact event, you don't think there's a bunch of dum-dums out there that aren't going to run out and be like, we worship you. We want to, start our own faith based around you, and
that
please
could happen.
take us up to your ships and fly us around, oh God.
Fine. There's 7 billion people on this planet. Okay, so if like 420 decide to do that, it's irrelevant. If 40,000 decide to do it, it's irrelevant. The question is, will human race in the collective approach this as deifying ETs? The odds of that happening are extremely small. So I'm not worried about that. It's like, don't create a problem that isn't there yet.
Well, look at from this perspective. They make you feel better. It's something whimsy that we can't explain, and rarely anybody's ever seen. Some people will say that they will. Even people standing there together, one will have a sighting, one will not. There's something very mysterious to this. There's something ethereal, extra dimensional, something like that. We've gotten to the point where maybe we can describe it as technology, but this is perhaps what religion was made for all along. Maybe all religions are just an attempt to describe a UFO phenomena that they couldn't explain because they didn't have a technological reference point. So therefore, even the study of the aliens themselves are their own kind of new religion now that we have a technological reference point. Then you look at people like evangelicals, like let's say those people who, I don't know, rip people off by saying that they have holy water that they can mail to your grandma as long as she sends her a check. Or let's say, just for instance, just a hypothetical, that there's somebody that tells you that they can contact aliens with a green laser on a hill and you pay them a lot of money to go do it. And people follow that like a religion because they're hoping to have this religious experience via this modality. So therefore, it's not like they're going to write a Bible about it, but thousands of books have been written on the subject. And yes, the fact that there have been thousands of witness cases and hierophanies and all of these different places make it more pervasive than the few or one, at least, that all other religions possess. The idea is that it brings people together. They're studying something mysterious that they view as their salvation. Look at what we talked about the technology saving humanity. That's a salvation that we can't attain ourselves, that we're looking for this sky thing to come down and give us. It's a religion, man. It's just a religion with more steps. That's it.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not going to buy it. It has a few elements of it, but it's not a religion. And one of the reasons that's troubling for me is that the religious thing has been used by the truth embargo to help undermine getting this
issue. It's not a negative thing. It's an observation. It's not a negative thing. It's not like I'm calling it a cult.
It's a negative thing. What is the word believer? People call people that are interested in the UAP phenomena, they call them believers. Why do they call them that?
Because they haven't witnessed. They believe that something there. They have faith, let's say.
Yeah, well, they're trying to tie their interest in the subject to some sort of religious approach to things. They believe in the ETs like they believe in God or believe in Jesus Christ. And of course, that tends to undermine the legitimate efforts to do good science and try to understand the truth of the matter. So literally, religion has been used by the truth embargo as a way to undermine the validity and the efforts of these people. So I'm very sensitive to going there. Look, there's 7 billion people on the planet. At any given time, there's some people doing all kinds of things. So what? Will the human race create a religion around extraterrestrials? No, it won't. It hasn't. Not in the modern era. In the ancient era, it's very possible.
Okay.
But this isn't 4,000 years ago. This isn't 2,000 years ago. We are a fully developed global technological society. And so we're not going to easily suddenly decide. We're not going to create cargo cults or start building saucer-shaped temples, though somebody will try it, right? Somebody will do that. So what? One of the problems in the modern world is we know too much. In other words, we got a pretty good idea what's going on, but over here somewhere, there's 86 people that do something. And we zero in on that and go, oh, wow, what's going to happen there? It's a big deal. No, it's not. Right? It's not a big deal. There's a lot of people doing lots of stuff all the time. So what? You've got to look at the larger picture. Where are we going as a human race? Where are we going as a nation? How are we interacting with this thing? And not stop paying so much attention to what individual people do. It's like I turn on the news, and this person murdered that person, and then that person murdered this person. And so it's like 8 or 9 murders. And so you would think that the most important thing in the world is 8 murders that took place last week. No, it's not. And so this is a real dilemma that we have. We're driving ourselves crazy by literally looking at the granular stuff that's going on while completely ignoring the macroscopic things that are happening that threaten all of us. In other words, I really want to know if somebody killed somebody at a 7-Eleven last month, but I don't want to know anything about the nuclear proliferation going on between the United States and Russia. That's what drives me crazy. What can I do? I turn the news off? I probably should. But somewhere in there, they'll have something important that I want to know. But this is a problem across the board. We are obsessing with limited, small examples of human behavior while not paying attention to the larger conduct of human behavior and our larger decisions. We've gone microscopic. We need to go macroscopic. We're getting into some woods here, I can say that. But,
I like the woods, because one would say
Yeah.
you have to go within. You have
We're
to tend your own
camping.
garden. You can't do anything by not working on a local level. You know, that's why everything changes here. And to what you said about it being paid attention to, but with no evidence and therefore not being studied, dark matter, dark energy. We have way more evidence that there is UFOs and something flying around our skies than we do for the result of dark energy or dark matter, yet billions of dollars are funneled into that research to discover.
Well, it's an area of science. They're studying
well,
it.
it is, but it's still, the scientists still have faith, like a religion does, just like we all have faith that UFOs are correct, and you have faith that our government will tell us that that's what's going on.
We're still chasing Newtonian physics, right? And when it's like
There's
it's almost
a lot
like we need this paradigm to change a bit. I tried to have this conversation at like some drinks party back in Canada a long time ago, and my buddy laughed in my face because I was like, hey, like gravity is, we know something's there, but we just haven't fully proven it yet. You know, it's not fully. And he's like, what are you talking? I was just like, frig, like there's just, I'm trying to say that they're trying to find the real force behind it still. And they're linking into this, linking to that. Yeah.
It's the law of density. That's it. That's it. It explains 100% of it. And you know where that does work? On a flat Earth model. Darcy, we're going to wrap it there. So on a flat Earth note, we're going to wrap it there. It's a law of density. Gravity is a myth. Stephen Bassett, thank you so much, man. We're going to link all the ways to find you in the show notes. Of course, you guys check out YouTube. Check out media at occultjourneys.com. That's where we can be emailed at. If you've got any questions for any of us guys or anything else, just let us know there. And then Darcy Ware, dude, thank you so much, man. Tell us about your movie again and where they can find it.
Oh yeah, Secret Space UFOs Part 1. Check that out. It's a series. I have Luna Incognita, who's a good friend of mine now, Carrie Martinuk, who worked on that with me. It's real history, real events in space and NASA related cover-ups. So check it out.
Hell yeah.
And where can we find your stuff, Steve? Please, and thank you.
Where's your show at, man?
I don't know. Well, I don't have it underway yet. It's still in what I call the opening stage. It's not developed. Doesn't matter. Look, my website is paradigmresearchgroup.org. Follow me on Twitter, Paradigm Research Group. Follow me on Facebook. Gentlemen, my reality has been thoroughly expanded over the last 2 hours.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go take a Xanax, I think.
And to that note, I am Brandon Thomas with Expanding Reality Podcast. You guys can find it anywhere you find podcasts, YouTube, expandingrealitypodcast.com, all that good stuff. Go check it out. Go check out our conversation on that show. That was a lot of fun. Stevie B, Darcy Weir, good to see you guys, man. Thank y'all so much.
All right. Okay. Later.
Good night, brother.
Wait a minute. I have an ET devotion service I need to get to right now. I've got to
do it, brother. Peace be the journey. Peace be the journey. Shalom.
Worship the right ET for me.
All right. Thank y'all so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Night, buddy. Woof.